In terms of rotations, how do you like to rotate in wide receivers, offensive line? What is your strategy? What is maybe, the strategy that Coach Brown likes to employ, and how do y'all kind of do that?
So Ross, there's two ways to do it. One is based on going into the game. We kind of know where our players are from a rep count standpoint. So you have sort of a number in mind. You never know how many plays you're going to get in a game. We're already getting fewer plays in games than we did last year because teams are holding the football. So, but percentage-wise, you have a focus. But you want to keep your top players out on the field on 3rd and long. You get down to the red zone, you want your top playmakers on the field. So those things play a part. And then, of course, the war of attrition plays a part. So if we've got De'Ami Brown has covered a lot of ground on 5 or 6 plays, we may, Lonnie may spell him just because he needs it. So I think the fatigue factor, and I think the situation in the game or where we are on the field plays a part of that. And so Gillespie does a really good job, as good as anybody I've been around, of working through our running backs. And Lonnie does the same thing with the receivers. And we already know going into the game what the O-line rotation is. And so Stacy has a rep count in his head, and we're trying to spell guys accordingly. So it's the same philosophy with all three. But obviously, if you have a legitimate first guy, you want him on the field the most, and you're going to spell him when he needs it with a guy that kind of meets the standards. And so that really doesn't change from week to week. That's the same.
And then preparing for Virginia Tech, with all the COVID cases they've had and not having tape on probably some players that are going to play. They didn't play against State, didn't play against Duke, they might play against y'all. How do you go about preparing for a team? Some questions on who's going to play, especially in the secondary.
So we have a quality control guy upstairs that has provided 3 different depth charts. And they're all very, very different because it's what's projected this week. It's what the roster or the depth chart was in game 2, and it's what the depth chart was in game 1. So what we prefer to do, what we're going to do is we're going to game plan the scheme and what they do. And we're going to expect that their best players at every position are going to be on the field on Saturday. So we're planning for the most difficult defense, the most talented personnel that they have. And then wherever it may be different, at least we're ready for their best hand on Saturday.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
All right. CL Brown, go ahead.
I feel Coach Brown alluded to being patient on offense and not expecting, because of the way teams are playing you guys and trying to take away the deep pass, not expecting just to have these big explosive plays and TDs like that. I was wondering, from your perspective, how do you play call patience? Like how does that factor in to a team being patient?
Well, it's a great question because it forces, we want the big yards, and we want the big catches and the deep balls and the quick touchdowns and all that stuff. It makes life easier for all of us when you have the potential to go downtown and create a big play and get a quick score. But, it's intelligent on the part of our opponent to keep things in front of you and force you to have to score in longer drives. And so we always attack with the mindset that we're going to take what the defense has given us. And we have to understand, and we did a better job in the Boston College game than we did in the Syracuse game, of taking things underneath, running the ball more when they're giving us a good box, pushing the ball to the perimeter, the shorter, quick hitters, if that's what they're giving us, because they're not going to align up close to the line of scrimmage and just let us take shots, which in some games, that's what we were given last year. So I think people are going to try and make us earn it. We struggle with that a little bit at Syracuse in terms of being frustrated that we couldn't pull the trigger on some of that stuff. So as a play caller, I think my mindset really doesn't change. I want to call what they're giving us. And truthfully, our guys have a lot of input in what we do. If a receiver tells me he's got something route-wise against a particular coverage, or Coach Galloway tells me, we're going to call it. if Stacy Searles likes something in the run game, or Gillespie likes something in the run game, or I do, then we're going to call it. And we're basing it on what they're doing at that point in time. So that there's nothing really for me to change other than I can't have the expectation that we're going to come out and definitively be able to do any specific thing in the game. It's always going to be based on where the grass is and what the defense is giving us.
And kind of on that tail end, to that end, Daz has caught 3 balls so far this year, and I was curious if is it a matter of defenses taking him away? Is it a matter of Coach Brown saying, you know, some of his targets went to other receivers that were in the game when he wasn't in the game, or not some of his positions targets went to other guys who were in the game? I just wanted to know kind of like what is it going to take to kind of get him back being a big part of the offense?
So we've talked about the distribution in this offense before, and in my experience, most years it winds up playing out nicely where you're getting the ball to most of your guys. It does concern me when we go 2 games and we have a talent like Daz Newsome and he's touched it 3 times. So I think when the distribution isn't falling the way you want to, you pay a little bit more attention to it, and you game plan and scheme to get them to become a bigger part of the game plan. And we will certainly do that with some of the receivers. Now, that ball has gone to our running backs a little bit more the first 2 weeks because that's been what has been given in the game plan. But I think before the season's all said and done, everybody will wind up being a much bigger part of what we're doing. Do I want to earmark plays for Daz and Diami and Garrett Walston? Absolutely, I do. And I think you'll see that change as the season goes on.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, let's go over to JB Ricks.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking out the time. I guess I have a similar question when it comes to the patience that your team is displaying or not displaying so far through the season. The frustration that has been expressed from Chaz and from Coach Brown that they're getting when they're not blowing teams out. What role can you play with your offense to try to quell those frustrations that they're dealing with and them not displaying themselves on the field?
So the first thing I would say is I think probably frustration is too strong of a word. You know, we have guys that are talented and they want to make plays, and they want to contribute because they know they can. And so it's our job as a staff, it's my job as a play caller to make sure that we get the ball to those guys. And so obviously that's something we'll focus on this week and for the remainder of the year. But it's not frustration to a point where we're just eager to play. We're passionate to play. It's 10 weeks and 2 games. You know, I think those opportunities are going to present themselves. The biggest plus right now for us is that we're getting right back out on the field within a week. We haven't done that since November. And to me, the rest of it, as I said, it's going to fall into place, and we're going to get better as we keep playing. And so to me, the opponent isn't as important as the fact that we're getting back out on the field on Saturday, and we don't have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to go do what we do.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Emma Steinberg, go ahead, Emma. Emma, are you there? We'll try to get back to you. Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Mac was asked about the pass protection, and he said that the offensive line maybe did a better job than what it may appear to some people, and there were some other factors. Can you elaborate on what some of those other factors were that gave the appearance that the pass protection maybe wasn't as good as it needs to be?
So sack reduction, no matter how many you give up 10 in a year, you give up 30 in a year, you always study it at the end of the season, Andrew. So you've got there are numerous different ways that you can give up a sack. An O-line sack is a missed assignment where we did not set on somebody and we gave them a free run at the quarterback. An O-line sack can also be we set the right guy and he physically beat us and got to the quarterback. That is those 2 scenarios would be credited to the O-line for an O-line sack. Now in the statistics, they're all credited to the offensive line. But in reality, when you look at it from an offensive standpoint, those are the two things that would happen for us as a staff to know it was really the fault of an offensive lineman that gave up the sack. Another reason is our quarterback holds the ball too long. So if we're going through just, let's say, a 3-step progression and we get through 3, we've got to do something with the football. We either have to run it, or we have to throw it away, or we have to check it down. If we sit there and hold the football, which goes beyond what our planned time is for the protection, then it really is a quarterback sack. That's the responsibility of the quarterback. And then, the last thing is that we got a lot of man coverage on Saturday, but regardless of man or zone coverage, if our receivers aren't doing a good job of getting open, you can actually credit a sack. Quarterback is there, he's ready to pull the trigger, and the receiver slips, or he doesn't run the right route, or he doesn't get off of man coverage or something. Really, you're not triggering the football because the receiver's not getting open. So there are a lot of – you also can have an MA or a physically beaten tight end or running back in protection. We had one play where a running back got beat on Saturday. So everybody plays a part in that. Statistically, the blame always goes to the offensive line. And they gave up 2. We had a running back give up 1, and we had one that belonged to our quarterback on Saturday. So obviously you address it with the entire team. We're not just quick to blame the O-line, because all 4 did not belong to them from the BC game.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's try to go back to Emma Steinberg. Emma.
Hey, Coach. This is Emma Steinberg from Sports Illustrated. Thanks for taking the time. With COVID impacting in-game attendance and that energy that comes from the crowd, how have you been able to keep the energy and momentum up while playing in stadiums with no fans?
So I haven't heard Coach Brown's press conference yet, but I would imagine if you had asked him that question, he'd tell you it's going to be self-generated. The experience after the Syracuse game in 31 years of coaching was as bizarre as anything I've ever experienced, because it was just so quiet after the game. And we met with Coach Brown on the field instead of in the locker room. And so those are just some of the adjustments that you have to make during the game. And I can't speak for all our players, but there is crowd noise playing, so it doesn't sound quiet or dead like a practice. And truthfully, like, once I make the first play call, I really don't notice. I don't notice, because everything that I do is either focused on our players on the sideline, or it's focused on what we're doing during the game. And I can't speak for our players, but I know, think back, which is many years ago, but when I played, I probably wouldn't have noticed then either. I think where you notice it is big third downs in the red zone, where our stadium is rocking because they're all pounding the bleachers on a big down. Those are the points in time in a game where you actually notice the crowd. And I'm not so sure, and Coach Brown has said this, I'm not so sure that home field advantage this year is quite as much as an advantage as it has been in the past, where your crowd plays a huge part in the game.
All right, Greg Barnes, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, I'm used to asking about Bud Foster during Virginia Tech week, so I'll mix it up and ask about Justin Hamilton. Is he doing anything much differently than what Bud did?
They are a little bit. The word in the spring was they were going to keep doing the same stuff. I think there's a lot of that remains there. They're in a little bit more one high than they were last year, and they're doing a few different things in terms of where they place their backers, and how they trigger on protections and how they pressure. So if I had to put a number on it, I'd say there's 70% of it looks like it's the same to us, maybe 25-30% of it, which is enough to have to concern yourself with some different things that they're doing. We had a tremendous amount of respect for the DC last year and what they did, and I know Bud was in the game for a long time. Tremendous amount of respect for him and what he did and what he accomplished, and I think a lot of that is still there at VTech, and is still a concern game planning for them, and then their new staff has added some new things that right now has forced us to have to game plan some of what we're doing a little bit differently. So the true test will be what they run against us on Saturday and how we respond to it.
Thanks, Phil.
Yes, sir.
All right, last one. Brennan Marks, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, thanks for taking the time. Mac had mentioned after the game on Saturday that that was as impressive as a performance as he's seen from Sam moving the ball with his feet so far since he's been in Chapel Hill. I'm just wondering, what role would you like for his rushing ability to play in the offensive game plan, and why is that so effective in sort of overloading what defensive coordinators have to prepare for?
Well, I would say from an offensive coordinator standpoint and from Sam's standpoint, or any quarterback standpoint in this offense, last year we just felt so handcuffed because we got into a depth chart issue, with an injury and whatnot at the quarterback position, and so it became. I mean, we don't want to get Sam hurt, regardless of who's in that room, but we really could not utilize him at all, and we were able to kind of cut him loose in the Temple game, and he had 3 or 4 plays which drastically changed some drives for us. And he did the same thing against Boston College. He was smart. He slid and got out of bounds when he needed to, but he had a lot of positive yardage, and he was able to move around the pocket, including his scramble throw to Javonte Williams. We're going 4 verticals, and he checks it down to the back, and we're in the end zone. So a lot of that was a result of Sam's athletic ability in the pocket. So that's the added aspect. He can pull on runs, okay? We can move him more. We can have a design draw or quarterback run in the game on Saturday now without worrying about it. And we're pushing him. We want him to utilize his feet in the pass game if he can extend the play and make a throw. And he did that a number of times Saturday. So I think that's going to be the added weapon that we have in the offense that we did not enjoy last season.
Does some of the physical changes he's made to his body in terms of, slimming down a little, adding on some more of that speed, has that sort of helped with reintegrating that into the offense?
Yeah, and Sam is an individual example of our entire team. And I've always said this, especially when I address our offense. I think the best thing about our group right now, because they're mature and they're a high character group, is when we emphasize something with them, we get it that week. So if we need to improve on something in a particular week, they lock in, they get it done, and we're going to do that better the following Saturday. And I think that's why you see the team get better. And Sam's no different. So when we emphasize things in the spring, including his hip flexibility and his weight and his change of direction, he put a lot of time and effort into it. And he was obviously more mobile in the BC game than he was last year because of it.